Hi, how's everyone doing today? I came across this post on Dribble and I thought it was really cool. It was by a UI designer by this name. I do not want to butcher the name, so I'm gonna put a link to it so you can actually see some of his other work, which is really cool, and you can just check him out. So what he did here, he got Brendan Urie, and so he put Panic at the Disco in the background, but so you can still read the full name. He had it overlay on top of Brendan Urie's body, but with the text being dotted lines. That way, it can still be legible, but not covering too much of his body, so you can tell right away who it is. So today I'm gonna go over how to do that. So I'm gonna go to Photoshop, and you want to just hit Create New. You'll get this window, and I'm gonna make my document size 1800 by 1800 with the resolution of 300. RGB color mode. If you're going to want to do this for printing, you're going to want to do CMYK instead, and then 16-bit, and then we're going to hit create. So I'm going to unlock this layer. This is just going to be our bottom layer, and then the first thing we're going to do is going to add that background color. So we're going to do adjustment layers, and we're going to add a solid color. The nice thing about adjustment layers is that they're always editable. They're always going to be able to go back and change whatever needs to be changed, depending on kind of layer it is. So for that dark blue, we're gonna have 28303D. So that's gonna be the code for them. I'm gonna press OK. Next, what we're gonna have to do is just gonna add in that model. So the model I had is this gentleman here, and I found it on pexels.com. I'm gonna link everything I use in terms of assets and fonts and stuff in the description, so you can follow along. So you can just download them for free. I'm gonna press copy image, and I'm just gonna press Ctrl V and paste them in there. And then I'm just gonna hit Ctrl T. If you are using a Mac, you're gonna want to just instead of using Control, you're gonna be using Command. They're just interchangeable in that way. All the other shortcuts are gonna be the same. Control and Command is just gonna be the difference. So I'm gonna hit Ctrl T, and I'm just gonna resize it. I'm gonna resize it. I'm gonna put the ending of his legs at the bottom. So right there, and then I'm gonna hit enter. Actually, I'm gonna make them a little bit smaller. Perfect. There you go. So the first thing we're gonna need to do is remove the background from him. If you have Photoshop CC, which is the subscription-based service, you have a very easy tool that will do all the work for you. You will just hit select subject, and Photoshop will just take him out of the background. It's gonna select him. And then you would just have to do some minor adjustments, as right here you would have to just remove this stuff, but I'll show you guys how to do it the long way. If you guys are using Photoshop like CS6 or something older, you're just gonna want to go to your magic wand tool, and then some of you guys might have this wand. You're just gonna want to hold down and then click on quick selection tool, and then you just want to click right here, add plus sign, so you can add to your selection. I'm gonna zoom in by pressing Control plus Command plus if you're on Mac. And you're just gonna go around and select part of his body, and then Photoshop is kind of gonna just start selecting the main parts. So it kind of does a very quick job. Just make sure it got all of his body. So right here we're missing his hand. That's it. If you find that your brush is too small or too big, you can always edit it here, change the size of it. I put 27 pixels for mine. The last thing is his face right here. Kind of missed it. It's kind of hard to get because of the white background. So there you go. So I have all of that selected. His hand is missing, so I'm gonna add that. And then other than that, everything seems ready to go. So I'm gonna Control minus to zoom out, see everything looks good. Then I'm gonna go to select and mask. And from there on, I can fine tune it a little bit more. What I'm gonna do is, first thing is for the shift edge, I'm gonna put it to -70. So all this does is shrink the outline. So one of the biggest mistakes that happens when you're cutting out an individual or a subject from a picture, people tend to show the outline of the background. So let's say the background was red and he's black and white. You would see like the red outline from the background because they forget to remove to kind of decrease the border of him being removed. So after that, I'm just going to go to output 2. So if it's not there, you click this arrow, output 2, and I'm going to put a layer mask. I'm going to press OK, and there you go. So he's completely by himself. He's removed. You could always lower the shift edge a little bit more. As you can see, this is what I mean. If you do not decrease it, you kind of have that, and it's the sign of that, hey, you know, that's the color of the background that he was on. And then as you can see, there's also some mistakes right here. So what you can do with the nice thing about a layer mask, it's kind of like an eraser, but that you can always bring back and forth. So I'm pressing B for my brush tool, and black will remove. So if you try to remove like that, or if you use white instead, white will always bring back. So that's the little shortcut for that. So I'm just gonna quickly bring back his pockets. I'm just gonna zoom in just to be accurate. I'm just gonna do it really fast for the sake of time. There you go. There you go. So we have his pockets. So awesome. Next, what we're going to do is we're gonna add a gradient map. So we're gonna actually change it because we knew when we saw that original post, Brennan, you already had like brown overtones. And so we're gonna do that. So by doing so, we're gonna add another adjustment layer. We're gonna add one called gradient map. As you can see, it all looks a little wonky. Don't worry, we're gonna fix all that. First thing we're gonna have to do is we're gonna right click on map, and you're gonna have all these tools. Make sure you click on the actual kind of this section, because if you click on this or on the actual gradient, you can't, different set of tools, and those options won't pop up. So once you're on this, you go to create clipping mask. And all this does is tell Photoshop that, hey, anything I do to this layer only affects the one that it's underneath it, the one that it's pointing at. And so now all we're gonna do is change the colors. So it looks a little kind of like a negative photo-ish. So if you click reverse, you know, boom, it looks normal. Now we're just gonna actually change it to a brown. So for the dark brown, we're gonna go with 5B5A5B. It's gonna be our dark brown. And for our lighter one, for our light brown, it's gonna be B1A99C. And there you go. So we have our brown. Now it still looks a little bit washed out, so we're gonna add one more adjustment layer. It's gonna be curves. So we're gonna add a curves layer. And again, we're gonna make it into clipping mask. You can just right click and hit clipping mask. Or if you want a shortcut, you just hold down Alt on your keyboard. And once you hit this little square with the line, you can click on there and it applies it. So these two layers only affect the inside of this. Next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the darks a little bit darker. And we're gonna make the whites a little bit brighter. There we go. So basically what the curves layer right now is what we're doing is we're making all the darkest shadows darker and the brightest part and the highlights brighter without affecting the midtones. So that's the reason it looks washed out, because we made the gray tones and the highlights and the shadows all brighten themselves. So this way we don't affect the midtones, which keeps the image looking more of a better contrast. So there we go. And you can obviously play around with this until you like the way it looks. Also, you don't actually have to stick with a brown color scheme. This is just recreating what we saw. So next, we're gonna add the text. So I'm just gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna go to my text tool. And it's gonna be this font called Hendagon. I don't really know how to pronounce it. It'll be in the description. And I'm just gonna write some text. Carry a big stick. Boom. And I'm gonna make sure it's red. So the red I want it to be is gonna be FE5337. I'm gonna press enter. So you gotta make sure everything's selected first. And then there you go. That tends to happen, FE5337. There we go. Awesome. And then I'm just gonna align this kind of towards the middle. It's okay if it goes a little bit over him. And then I'm gonna lower it so it doesn't cover too much of his face. There you go. And then the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to my text tool by pressing T, and I'm gonna hit this button right here. It lets me warp the text. I'm gonna go for rise. I'm actually just gonna set it to 10%. Just a minor diagonal rise. And then there we go. So now we have the normal text, but now we need to create that dotted outline text. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna select this layer. So to select the layer, you wanna just hold Control or Command and then just select in this box. And once you select in the box, you have these marching ants, all these dotted lines. And then you wanna go to your wand tool, and you want to press right click on your mouse, and you're gonna have all these options. And the one you're gonna want to select is make a work path, and then tolerance 0.5. All this does is it's like doing exactly if you had your pen tool and you meticulously selected everything. So Photoshop already does the work for you. That way you can save some time. So now we're gonna create a shape out of this. We told Photoshop, hey, select all this. Now you're gonna want to go to your pen tool, and you're gonna have 3 options: selection, mask, and shape. And all you're gonna want to do is select shape, and it's gonna give us like a black or a white one actually. So we have our shape now. We go to the shape tool right here, and it's gonna have our options. So it's white. We don't want it to be white. We don't want it color inside. And then for stroke, we want like a light color. So I'm just gonna go with white FFFFF. And then I'm gonna increase the stroke a little bit so it's a little bit more visible to 7 pixels. As you can see, kind of starting to see the outline. And then if we go here, we're gonna have the dotted line option, and we're just gonna click there. Awesome. And for alignment, we're gonna align it outside the text. There you go. And then I'm gonna have round caps and corners so that it's the dots are rounded as opposed to squared. And so it's starting to look good. Now we just need to get rid of all this. It shouldn't be all over the text. It should only be where the model is. So to do that, we're gonna use that layer mask that we made previously. So that's why we removed the model from the background. So we're gonna select this layer mask by making sure the layer mask is selected. And we're gonna press Control and mouse click. So we have him selected. And while he's selected, we're gonna go back to our main text layer, the one that says carry a big stick. And we're gonna hit the layer mask. And it's gonna automatically generate it based off the information we gave it. So it's reversed, and that's all right. So we just click on our layer mask, and we're gonna hit invert. There you go. Now it's in the parts outside the model. And now we're gonna do the exact same thing for the dotted line portion, just in the opposite effect. So we're gonna select this layer mask. We're gonna click shape 1, and we're gonna add a layer mask. And there you go. Now we have all the dotted layers inside and all the red lettering outside. And then if you want, this just becomes personal preference of how you want to edit it. You could always change the width of it. So you can always do 5 pixels if you want smaller dotted lines. Or you could always make it bigger too. So I'm gonna keep it at 6 actually. And then if you go here, if you have more options, it'll give you the ability to kind of play around with how the spacing between the dotted lines as well. So the gap, gonna make a gap of 3. And then I'm gonna press OK, and then that just adds more separation between it. And there you go. So that way you have your entire layer all set up, ready to go. And that's pretty much the main effect. There's a number of ways you can use this for your album art, magazine cover, flyer, anything like that. It's a very unique and interesting way. You can do it with different types of text as well, like sans serif as well. I used it with the script one today. You just got to make sure that the text is nice and big, and then you could always do other effects to it or combine it with others in different color schemes. So if you guys did like this tutorial and actually follow through with it, let me know. Follow me on Instagram at Wi-Fi Train, and post it or tag me in it, and I'd be happy to see all that stuff and give some feedback to it. Other than that, have a good rest of your day.